Wow, 130 years. I know God tells us to be humble, and not proud, but I don't think we look a day over 129. So we are doing great for our age. So I'd like to bring up Diane. She'll be helping us with our memories of our time at Memorial.
I have to tell a little story from our history, which is not in this. So we'll just leave the Potter family on the screen for now. Okay, so in the 1890s, our church up at 5th and Woodworth allowed the Baptists and the Presbyterians to share our facilities before they were able to build their own church. And then they went on in just a few years and built their own churches in 1897 and 1898. But we kept that tradition going in the 1980s and 90s and until this day now by sharing our facilities with other churches. So we were surprised yesterday when our Korean brethren brought in that beautiful bouquet that's right straight in front of the cross. And they were honoring us on our 130th celebration. So I wanted to be sure you all knew that the flowers came from multiple places.
And for those who don't know who Ben is, who is that?
Oh, Ben is a little boy that I gave birth to 38 years ago today. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now I will begin with the actual presentation of the history. So the first part of the historical review will be a little sample of the earliest years in our church. John Wesley Potter came to this area in 1870 to raise sheep before there was a town of Clovis, when the town's namesake, Clovis Cole, was just a young boy who hadn't even arrived in California yet. Potter became active in the Mississippi Church, a Sunday school affiliated with the Academy Methodist Episcopal Church South. By 1893, the members of the Sunday school felt it was time for the growing village of Clovis to have a church of its own. Potter and James Wiggins Cate secured 4 lots at 5th and Woodworth, just west of the town, and founded our church. James Cate and his wife Eliza are the first names recorded in our membership record book. The names of John and Mattie Potter and their daughters Kate and Lizzie follow. The new Methodist Episcopal Church South was assigned Pastor Joel Hedgepeth, who also served the Academy Church. He pastored in Clovis from 1893 to 1897 and continued later at Academy. Bessie Howard Pickup wrote, "As children, we always sat in the front row and listened to the sermon. Reverend Hedgepeth was very cross-eyed, and we have joked and said that we were quiet and sat still because we could not tell when he was looking at us." Be that as it may, we did listen. His sermons were quiet and gentle and full of love and compassion for our fellow men, not the fire and brimstone, yelling, stomping, and arm-waving sermons that were the usual product of his day. Helen Harper was a recording secretary during the pastorate of B.H. Green from 1897 to 1899. She wrote in the minutes of the Women's Parsonage and Home Missionary Society, "Carpet rag sewing only being the order of the hour, Sister Mattie Potter brought with her some nice long carpet rags ready for sewing, which made us smile who were sewing rags that were too short for speedy sewing." And continuing with the minutes, J.C. Robertson was the pastor in 1899 to 1901, and the Women's Society was still busy. Belle Robertson wrote, "Motion made and carried that $1.50 be sent to Mrs. Taylor for the preacher at Big Oak Flat, who recently lost all that he had by fire." Sometime around 1900, fire also destroyed our first church building. We have no pictures of the first church. But the second church was soon constructed, and C.E. Clark served as our pastor from 1901 to 1903. His wife, who signed her name Mrs. C.E. Clark, as was done in those days, was now the secretary of the Women's Society. Sister Gillum reported that there was a family in town by the name of Murray in destitute circumstances. The lady was helpless, and the children were without proper clothes. Material for 7 garments was then donated, and the ladies took it home with them to make up. 2 years later, another tragedy struck. Mrs. Weatherby took over the secretarial duties and wrote, "Moved that resolution in regard to the death of Sister Clark be framed, discussed working for Brother Clark's children when and where. Moved that members meet next Thursday to sew for Brother Clark's children. Our sisters in the Presbyterian Church, wishing to show their love and appreciation of the work we have done, taken up in working for our pastor's motherless children, met with us to sew." The Howisons and the Polson families arrived in Clovis in 1903. Miriam Polson Wasson Shell said, "I remember Mother Minnie telling when they went to the Methodist church. One of the Harwell boys asked her to go on a hayride, and she went. The fellows were not very couth. She hated it here because it was so dusty and dirty. She almost expected the Indians to come over the hills." On the other hand, Miriam's uncle, Tommy Howison, wrote, oops, I've warned Vern not to get his pages out of order. Where's page 6? Oh, okay. Okay, this is what Tommy wrote. "The good people of that church, the Potter family, the Harwell family, the Edgar Allen family, the Booher family, the Ruby family, and the Odom family, all helped us through that first winter. We were gradually being weaned away from Ohio and becoming full-fledged Californians." These excerpts give a brief picture of the first 10 years of our church's life. I could go on for another 90 years from the Centennial book, but of course, that would take too long, and everyone will want to go to lunch. If you want to know more, you'll just have to read the book or watch the movie. So, I will go on with another step now, is towards the pioneer families. I have warned you guys, Pendergrasses and Marilyn, will you please come forward too? All of you, Sue. Bob can come too. Okay, Bob doesn't want to come. He's married into the family. Okay, if any of you want to stand on here rather than coming up the steps, Marilyn's going to stay down there. But if you can come up to the second level, that would be great. Or if you want to, they'll be right behind you. Okay, so first I'm going to recognize a few of the descendants of our pioneer families. Marilyn Brownell is standing in front, and she's a member of the Nelson Howard family, which we're going to be showing. Marilyn's pioneer family settled in the foothills beginning in the 1850s. The first two families were joined when the Waite's daughter Phoebe and married the Nelson son John. They had a son named Lee, who is the tall fellow standing in the middle of the photo. Okay, the Nelson family joined with the Howard family when Lee married Mabel, the tall girl at the left of the picture. Most of the Howard family became longtime members of our church, and one of them in this picture is Bessie Pickup, who told us about the cross-eyed Reverend Hedgepath. Lee and Mabel produced children who carried the family through the 20th and into this century. The last of those children in the church were Helen McGoey and Norma Meek. Carol Schweitzer was a granddaughter in that family. Norma passed away in 2020, just after her 99th birthday. Norma's daughter, Marilyn, graciously accepted our invitation to represent her family today. Marilyn is a good friend of our church, and we appreciate her as well as all of those who came before her. If you look up at the windows, with the three small angels smiling down on us up near the top on the right, it was donated to honor and dedication to the Nelson and Howard families. And I think that Norma's spirit may have influenced its position, because when we had the windows repaired, it was put back in the wrong place. And I think Norma would actually like it in its new position better, closer to heaven. And I'm sure she's smiling down on us now. Okay, so now, Marilyn, if you would like to, well, did anybody get a picture? Okay, good. Okay, Marilyn, if you'd like to sit down now, we'll let you have to get away from having to stand. But we're going to keep the Pendergrasses up here. Okay. The Presbyterian Church was almost kitty-corner to our Methodist Church at their original location. When the Presbyterians closed their church in 1927, we gained the Pendergrass family. The first members to join were Rosilla and her sons, James, Travis, and Clayton. James and Mamie were the parents of Betty Whip and Irma Walmsley. Betty was Heidi Markland's mother. Heidi? Hey. And Irma was Donna Walmsley's mother. Donna? Okay, Travis and Shirley were the parents of Zola Ray Sturgill, whose daughters are Sue Sturgill, Sue, right there, and Nancy Wright. Clayton and Ann were the parents of Carol Leinenbach, who I'm surprised to see you because you have rodeo duties. Carol, along with her husband, Jim, are this year's rodeo grand marshals.
Wow.
We are happy to have had the Pendergrass family in our church going on 100 years. Thank you all. Heidi hasn't exactly either, but it's honorary mention anyway. Heidi is at 49 years, so we're going to cheat a little bit. Okay, so now we need Becky and everybody else who is a 50-year member. Rick is an honorable mention. Diane, Mike, who else is in here? I know one more person who's coming up. Okay. So our current member who has been with us the longest is Peggy Rogers Boss. She joined in 1941 and has been a member for 83 years. She also is from Pioneer Clovis families, and interestingly, our longest time member at our centennial, May Noble, also belonged for 83 years at that time. Peggy and the next longest member are sort of related. Peggy's brother, Harry, married Wanda Cox. Wanda's sister, Joy Cox Cole, has been a member for 70 years. Okay, all right. Carol Pendergrass Leinenbach has belonged for 60 years, 66 years. So we're very grateful that you could come today. Oops, okay. Is Judy here? Judy. Okay, things got a little bit confused in 1962, but it does seem that Judy Gross actually joined that year, so that makes her a member for 62 years. And then this is a little bit of an anomaly, but in 1962, even though she was only 4 years old, Dory Osbeck Rose was also listed in our membership rolls. So that makes it 62 years for Dory, too. And then back to the clearer records in 1964, Becky Edison Posey was a member has now been a member for, where'd she go? For 60 years, 1964. Donna Walmsley has been a member for 59 years, and Carol Ann Pippin, who's not here, has been a member for 15 years. Also, Craig Eckert. I don't think Craig showed up today. Craig Eckert actually joined in 1959, but he took 10 years away from the church and then was restored to membership. So he has belonged for 55 years. And now, the guy over on the left over here, Ron Zastavnik, has been a member for 52 years. And I guess I have to say it. This other person we know, Diane Zastavnik, has also been a member for 52 years. So I'd also like to give honorary mention to Heidi Markland, because she has been a member for 49 years. And I'm getting my pages mixed up. Okay, I think I flipped it over. Okay, and Rick Hutchinson, who will also be a member for 49 years later this year. Okay. Are Mike and Dee here? Oh, there's Mike. There's Dee. Okay. Okay. Mike Crossland and Dina Smith Crossland also get honor mention because they are at least the third generation of their families to be members of this church. I think if you go back to Academy, it's longer than that. And they were both raised in the church. And the years of their membership are a little bit fuzzy, but we want to give them credit for having been in the church. And they met here. And they were married here. And so was Heidi. And Donna? Were you married here? Okay. Carol, were you married here? No? Okay. Becky? Yes, Becky and Jim. Becky and Jim were. Okay. All right. So anyway, is Stephen here? Dory? Is Stephen here? Okay. Okay. Okay, so is there anybody, I'd like to ask, because, sometimes the membership records don't clear everything correctly, obviously. Rick was married here. He was one of my first weddings. Rick and Sharon. I'm the wedding hostess. I have been forever, as is obvious. Oh, Judy. What did we do with Judy? Oh, you were married here too. Yes. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So, what I was about to ask is if there's anybody else in this church who has been here for 50 years, even if you haven't been a member for 50 years. I'd like you to stand up. That'd be since 1974. I think we got everybody. Okay, so now in this next segment, we are going to honor our past pastors. So in this next segment, we'll have our past pastors and our readers for them come up. We received written messages from 3 pastors affiliated with our church, and we have 2 past pastors to speak in person. So the first reading will be for Oscar Escamilla.
So greetings, everyone. I'm Sharon Hutchinson, and I'm reading from Oscar. He is, there he is on the screen. And he also married Rick and I 46 years ago. Diane was our wedding hostess, and Peggy Boss played the piano. And I am impersonating 2 people from our past. So I don't know if you have been reading. We've been impersonating is probably not the right word. But anyway, I am, for any of you know, I'm Isla Davidson. Anybody know Isla? Yes, okay. So Isla Davidson ran our kitchen for years, and then also Pat Fry, who just passed away, and she also ran our kitchen. And so the reason I'm dressed like this is actually because I'm supposed to be in the kitchen right now. So I'm reading Greetings from Pastor Oscar Escamilla. It has been a great honor to have a part in the history of the Clovis Church. I emphasize pastoral care and visitation of members and enabling lay leaders to carry the ministry. We had a contemporary service at 9 a.m. and a traditional service at 11 a.m. We had a very active youth group program with lay leaders and a youth director. With the great work of church leaders, we completed payments of the loan on the church and had a burning of the mortgage. So that was a huge thing. With joy and gratitude, Pastor Oscar. I do want to say one thing really quickly. So when you go over to have lunch, if you signed up, and if you didn't, please see me at the door. The Revival Church painted last week, and they're going to put new carpeting in 2 weeks. And so it's like, please excuse our mess. but the food is going to be great. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Andy. I'll be reading for Richard Dick Johnson. He sent his greetings. Greetings to you all, and we're sorry we cannot be present to celebrate the anniversary. We moved to Western New York 3 years ago, and it's a bit far to come for the weekend. Lois and I look back with gratitude on our 3 years at Clovis Memorial. It was a pivotal and important time in our lives. We lost a child during those years, and our beautiful daughter, Johanna, was born during those years. She took her first steps during our last days in Clovis. It was also a time when we made some difficult decisions about the future direction of my ministry and our life as a family. We have many memories. Lois recalls her stint as choir director and her work in trying to revitalize the women's organization. My memories are mostly about relationships with many wonderful people in the congregation, many of whom I know have long ago entered the church triumphant. But we both remember fondly the great kindness so many members of the congregation showed us during those difficult but ultimately formative years. May God continue to bless your ministry for many years to come. Our best to all friends at Memorial United Methodist Church, Dick.
I'm reading for Les Lundgren, who I knew him as one of the youth group members because my husband and I, before and after we were married, helped with the youth group. And to see this young man grow into the man he is today is very special. Greetings from Les Lundgren. Congratulations on 130 years of ministry to Clovis and beyond. There is so much I could say, but the loving, caring, and compassion you showed me on my ministerial journey is most important to me when I think of Clovis Memorial United Methodist Church's ministry. It all started at my home church and all the laity and pastors who guided me to my true love and calling to become a servant of God as a United Methodist pastor. I learned from our pastors and laity how important it is as a pastor to serve, be humble, be loving, and be compassionate to all people in society, especially those struggling with their spirituality in a complex world. From barbecues to buying bonds, building the social hall, I have many great memories of Clovis Memorial United Methodist Church. I will always remember having dinners in the narthex or the choir room. I will forever remember the great youth trips and being challenged to be a part of the Conference Youth Council to represent our church and district on the conference and national level. However, my best thoughts and memories are the support from my home church in my calling and decision to become a servant of God as a United Methodist pastor by watching Reverend Norm Mowry and Reverend Mark Bullwinkle. I saw what it meant to be a loving, caring, and justice-minded pastor. Watching and listening to them, I felt the calling from the Creator of heaven and earth to become a United Methodist pastor. When choosing a seminary, Reverend Mark Bullwinkle said, "Why not Claremont School of Theology?" What a great decision. I could go on because I have so many great memories of being a part of Clovis Memorial United Methodist Church. I wished I could be with all of you on your day of celebration, but my ministry with Trinity United Methodist Church in Los Osos has me busy loving and serving these beautiful, caring, loving people of the Creator. They sent their prayers and best wishes to you on this day. The Lundgren family sends our best wishes for another 130 years of ministry to Clovis and beyond. Whenever you are on the Central Coast of California, you are welcome to worship with us at Trinity United Methodist Church in Los Osos. Peace, Reverend Les Lundgren.
Well, you all might want to sit down because I was here for 13 years and I've got a lot to say. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Denise Leslie, and I had the privilege of serving this congregation beginning in 1997, and my appointment ended in 2010. And as I look out around this congregation, it's really a joy to see so many faces I don't recognize. That really speaks well of your pastor and your leadership. I have so many memories, and this will be a kind of a brief walk through that decade plus of things and bring you up to the present, or up at least to Jeanette. all three of our children were married in this sanctuary. And so that every time I'm in here, I have those wonderful memories. And today we have our daughter, Rena, who is married here, and my granddaughter, Abby, who's now 12, and Moira and Ian. Ian's in Idaho, and he's we call him the mud man. He's a soil scientist, and he married Tara DeFranco, Sue DeFranco's daughter. So those are really good memories. And Moira is homesick with our grandson Jackson, but she is completing a paralegal course after having to leave teaching due to having fibromyalgia. And she taught law for 12 years at CART. And that's a great picture. I'll never forget the day that the Hmong women dressed me and said I was a really tall Hmong woman. They had to put together different things from different people to get me dressed. Oh my goodness. Well, as for ministry, I arrived here after a period of really roiling conflict that just was devastating for everyone. And I just, there was a polarizing pastorate here at that time. So when I came in, I looked like Queen of the May by comparison. I mean, it could have been anybody, but I was really lucky. If I had followed Mark Bullwinkle, it would not have been such an easy thing, because Mark and I both shared the same passion, and that was to grow this church. We really worked hard at that. In fact, I would characterize that period of time in United Methodism and for all the mainline denominations as the golden age of church growth. Would you say that? And we were all just so intensely and urgently focused on not letting the institutional church decline to the point that it disappeared, but that we come up to speed with the reality of a changing culture and changing reality, diversity, and the rapid pace of change. So it was a challenge. It was a challenge to be relevant, but without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Because we're, as United Methodists, not like other churches that embrace culture to the point that they worship and celebrate culture. We worship Jesus Christ, we worship the God of grace and love, and we embrace everyone. Well, at first I was such an idealist, I thought that I could accomplish everything, and I was young, and over time I finally managed to focus down to three important things. The first one was to make ministry lay-owned and operated, to turn it over to all of you, because this is your church and pastors come and go. The second one was to bring our facilities up to speed because they were in dire need of attention. And that included bringing us into the 20th century at that time in terms of technology. When I arrived here, we had a really sweet secretary. She was just a doll, Dory. Everybody loved her. And we had a phone, and we had a typewriter. And we had a fax machine that worked sometimes. And we had a computer that scared Dory half to death. We didn't have a server. We didn't have all this technology in here. It was really, just starting from the basics. So the second thing I needed to do was to help us focus on attracting a younger generation. That younger generation is now my age. I'm 74. It tells you how long ago that was. Boomers. We needed boomers. We needed boomers to come in and replace the rapidly dying off, unfortunately, of all of our old leaders. They'd gone on to their heavenly reward, and we needed people to take their place. And so today I want to stand here and thank all of you who stepped forward, who came into the life of this congregation and took hold and did just that. You're our leaders today. And that includes you among the Hmong that I'm no longer acquainted with. Thank you. Well, so praise God, all of that actually happened before I was yanked out of here and told to go to elsewhere. Looking back, much of what wound us up at the time, you can't have change without conflict, without anxiety, without people personalizing that conflict. But when I look back, a lot of it was hilarious. And I'm going to share a few incidences with you that happened. I'll never forget the night I was driving home, and Trustee Mac McGargy called me, and he said, "Pastor?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Did you know all of our pews are on eBay for sale?" Ask me the backstory another time. Okay, then just after worship plan team met and they debated and they agreed to buy the Faith We Sing songbook that's in next to the hymnal. You remember that one? I was out making a pastoral call on one of our dear hearts who had just become a shut-in, and she said to me, "Pastor?" And I'm getting a little, I'm beginning to recognize this pattern now. And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Why have all of our hymnals been given away?" So that's kind of typifies that period of time. And then there was the invisible pulpit. How many of you remember the original pulpit that was in here? Yes, it was big, and it was made of wrought iron, and it was set back over there. I don't know if the pastors used it or not, but I did when I first came. I assumed that that's what I was supposed to do. Well, one Easter, we had a dramatic sermon. We were having a little bit of a play as part of the message. So I hired a piano tuning company to move it out into the social hall with permission, and with the intention of bringing it back, right? So, and I was fully prepared to get comments Easter Sunday morning about the fact that the pulpit wasn't there. Well, nobody said anything. I didn't get a word about it. So I thought, this is an opportunity. So I came back in middle of the week, and two older women who were sisters were in here refilling the pew pockets and cleaning up the pews, picking up the leftover bulletins, etc. And I said, something seems to be missing in here. What's missing? I just have this feeling something's missing. And they looked at each other, and they looked at me, and they looked around, and they said, "There's nothing missing in here." So I left it in the social hall, and then after about a year, we agreed to get rid of it, pass it on. Well, I've lost my place. Hold on a minute. Let's see. I have to confess, the first time I arrived and looked at this facility in 1997, when I came out to meet with the pastor parish relations committee, I was standing in the parking lot, and I looked at the front of the building, and there had been this huge mound of dirt. Rick, remember? And was the dirt still there? Yeah, it was, but it was pulled away from the wall, and you could see where the dark waterproofing was against the adobe. And it was a project in process, which I didn't realize. But the adobe walls, which were built without rebar, which you have struggled with, were beginning to tilt, and some of them were crumbling, and the whole facility was faded. Nothing had been done for 30 years. This was the new church. And in here, the communion rails were all wrought iron, and they were bent. And the cross was a kind of a faded yellow, and it faded into the background, which did not have all those beautiful windows up there at that time. There were some windows, but not many. And it was yellow, and you didn't see it when you walked in. It just kind of faded away. So it was obvious that we needed to do something. And I remember the first Sunday I was in the pulpit and I was preaching, and it started to rain, and almost as if on cue, a bunch of people got up and walked out and went to the janitor's closet through the library and came back with a variety of containers that they then placed underneath leaks all through the facility. So you can see that we needed a huge renovation project. And that we managed to do. And about the only thing I can say about the renovation situation was that Gloria and McClanahan and Katie Vandermark, who were both interior designers, and decided that they would paint this area up here, which was black polished cement. You know, I'm not denigrating what was here because it was beautiful and it was made from the materials found here in the valley. And it just needed attention. Anyway, they hired a painter to paint it. And they were going to use a special kind of paint because of the cement. Well, it was only going to take a couple of weeks, and we were worshiping over in the other hall. But this gentleman went on a bender, and his family tried to hide it. And so it dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. Do you remember that? Oh my gosh. By the time we got back in, Max Cannon went to move the piano, and as he was moving it, behind him was this trail where the paint had all come up. We kept the spray paint business going for a couple of years before the ladies decided they were going to put down this beautiful tile. So everything you see around here is a result of your generosity and Church Extension Society giving us or loaning us $70,000 for 1% interest. I went in and I asked them to give it to us. They had the money. And I told them and showed them the statistics of other Methodist churches, that we were probably the only viable church. It made the most sense to do. Okay, I will wrap this up. I just want to affirm you, Memorial. You took risks. You did big things, like the community garden and the outreach ministry to the Hmong. And you did the live nativity, and that's still going. And I have lots of lovely memories of bringing my grandchildren here to see it every year. And it's improved over the years. And I want to thank you, those of you who are committed lay leaders. You were so great to work with. You were the highlight of my 38-year vocation. And I was privileged to have your dedication, your pushback, your, you always held me accountable too. I could give a shout out to so many of you individually, but there is one little petite person that I want to lift up before I step down here, and that is the memory of grandmother Uawoma. Being uninformed of her death, I was not here for her funeral and was not able to honor her before you. In a moment when I was completely demoralized about the effectiveness of my pastoral ministry and movement forward here seemed to have stalled, Grandmother Uawoma took note, and she took me aside, and this small, unassuming woman became bigger than life, like Mrs. Watset in Madeline Langle's story. You know, the archangels, how these little ladies just and explode into mammoth spiritual authority. Her words spoken with solemnity and the force of spiritual authority. God has answered your prayers. Immediately brought me into the presence of God and revived my call. Thank you, grandmother. You are now one of my balcony people, those faithful saints who cheer us on beyond the crimson line. Thank you, Memorial. Thank you for letting me go down memory lane and review so much.
Oh, family. Oh, it is good to see you. It is good to see you. Oh. So I thought I had 2 hours, and then I found out the service total was 2 hours. So I'm trying to shorten it just a little bit. Man, so many memories, wonderful memories. And the thing is I'm talking with God, right? Like, what of all these thousands of memories do I need to lift up this morning? And my husband reminded me that that in everything, we need to make sure that God gets the glory, right? All of this is not about how wonderful we are, but about how amazing God is. And so I want to tell you how wonderful you are, right? But I want to tell you that God is amazing and has brought together this beautiful congregation that absolutely, okay, this is being broadcast, but absolutely is my favorite group of people. Like, we played together and had fun. We played and had fun, and I haven't had that much fun in any other congregation I got to serve, all filled with wonderful people, but we played and had fun, and that was so great. I remember Pompous McStuffington. Do you guys remember Pompous McStuffington? Max Cannon as Pompous McStuffington, right? And the PTO, Parents Time Out, doing hee-haw jokes in the cornfield out back. Oh, just so dumb. Just so dumb, parting the corn and saying hokey puns, and yes, and Diane editing the video, going, oh, it was wonderful. It was a stewardship series that we did. It was really fun. Let's see, I remember Lucy guiding everybody to find a new parsonage, and everybody, going out to look at the places. It was wonderful getting the new parsonage. That was great. I remember Tinickling with Celerina and the volunteer and mission trips. Oh my goodness, we had some fun on the volunteer and mission trips. Oh my goodness, right before the pandemic. Yeah, right before the pandemic was our last one. Amazing, amazing good stuff happening. And for clergy, following God's call is like top, right? You got to do what God asks you to do. But being able to be in a place where people will play with you, right? And so the surprise birthday party on my 60th birthday, right? With people in cosplay, Star Trek and Harry Potter and Star Wars, and we even had Beanie and Cecil there. It was wonderful, and wonderful times. Second Sunday lunch. We had so many second Sunday lunches. That was great. We had those wonderful fundraisers, the non-cruise. We started with the non-cruise where everybody didn't go on a cruise and we just gave them money anyway. Then we didn't have to do any work, right? It was great. And we had so many. We had the New Year's one, and Karen made that amazing dragon, and we had the dragon dance. So many fun things. Learning to use chopsticks, playing the dice game and learning to use the chopsticks, right? It was just wonderful fun. So much fun. So much fun. And in a world where there's so much deep division, for a diverse group of people to be able to come together and have fun is a huge testimony, people. It's a huge testimony. And I know this congregation has a self-esteem issue. Like, people just don't think, they're like, oh, we're little, we're not important. But you have what the world wants. You have that amazing love that really respects one another in the differences and the diversity, right? You have the ability to hang together through all the differences, to love each other. Now, it's not always smooth and easy, right? But we keep going, and it's a beautiful thing, and it is what the world wants. And so I want you guys, you don't need to put on a brag flag necessarily, but I want you to lift up that this is a great congregation, that not only do we tolerate each other, we actually enjoy each other, and we have fun together, right? It's a wonderful congregation. And then, of course, I have to mention what happened, a little over 10 years ago when we had the Stop Hunger Now event, right? And that year we sent a team to Haiti, and then we raised another $30,000, over $30,000 to have Stop Hunger Now. We packed 120,000 meals for Stop Hunger Now, which is Rise Against Hunger. Do you guys remember that? Yes, right? And then the most amazing thing, we paid all of our apportionments and started the new year with extra money in the bank. Oh my gosh, that was such a thing. But the reminder is when you step out in faith, when you dream big, when you do bold things for God, God is faithful. God is faithful. You can trust God. When you make a space for God to show up, God shows up. When we said, can we do 120,000 meals? I remember Karen was sitting there and she's like, yes. And there was a bunch of people like, what? What? But people gave it their best shot. I remember Carol Schweitzer writing all of her relatives, we're doing this big thing, and would you donate? And people were sending $5 and $100. And she was talking to the woman at the fish and chips joint over on Shaw Avenue, one of her favorite fast food places. and the woman's reading her Bible. So she says, oh, do you go to church? Yes, I go to the Presbyterian church. Do you go to church? Yes, I go to this one over here. Oh, we have a Bible study every week. Oh, that's wonderful. We're getting ready to pack 120,000 meals. She's like, oh my goodness. So that woman's Bible study raised money and gave it to us, right? Because when you make a big dream that requires God's presence, God shows up through amazing people everywhere you go. So I just want to remind you guys, you're wonderful. You're beautiful. You have what the world needs. You live out the gospel message. And I want to encourage you to know that even though you feel like you're little and maybe you don't have a lot of strength, it's not about your strength, right? It's about God's strength. It's about God's strength and trusting God's strength, right? And say, yes, yes, God, we will continue to live boldly this gospel message, right? So many amazing memories. So many amazing memories. And I am so, so grateful that I got to be 11 years at this congregation.
Denise, yes, okay. So now we are going to go into our Hmong ministry. Our church's first involvement with our Hmong community that I remember was when we were giving Christmas presents to families in need in the early 1990s. The families were recent immigrants and they were struggling in their new circumstances. Richard Polson played Santa Claus, and, where did page 13 go? Okay, I thought I had it in order. There it is. And he was deeply touched by the children flocking around him when he delivered the gifts to their homes. Our next foray into the Hmong community in our neighborhood was with our community garden. That began in 1999 when Sharon Stanley, the director of Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministries, visited our church for a prayer breakfast. I had read about the firm's gardens and jumped at the chance to ask her about putting one in our weed-filled, trash-covered vacant lot. In our proposal to the Board of Trustees, we wrote, "When Hua Lee told these ladies that we were offering them a little bit of dirt, they were so excited it was as if we were offering them pearls. It occurred to me that this is how an oyster produces pearls, from a little bit of dirt. The soil we were giving them can grow not only crops, but healthy bodies and self-esteem. It could also be our opportunity to offer education and spiritual growth for them and for ourselves as well. As we Methodists know so well, the way to a hungry person's soul may well be through their stomach." For several years, we did have close involvement with our gardeners with vacation Bible school, Christmas parties, and educational opportunities. But then we went in a different direction. Denise and I went to St. Paul's United Methodist Church to talk to the administrator of the Hmong Charter School, Com Di Yang. And I'd like Jeanette and Denise to join me.
I'd like to say, first of all, that this was Diane's vision and call from God, and she really carried this. And there were lots of concerns by the Board of Trustees about water and water meters, et cetera, and she didn't let it go. She saw it through, all the detail, and eventually the Master Gardener program gave us a Master Gardener, and then Hua Lee, I'm sorry, apologize to the Lee clan. She came, and she organized the women, and 20 families began gardening out there and benefited from the produce. And at that time, it had been decided that the Hmong should be taken off receiving SNAP, and they were going hungry. People were going hungry. You have to remember the time that this was, and those of you who are adults in this room who are Hmong may or may not know this history, but elders were committing suicide in order to not be a burden on their families. And so the garden was very timely. And those older women were consummate farmers and their daughters. And they would get out there and garden and it was amazing what they raised. We had a neighbor behind us who wasn't too happy by the smell of cilantro. I'm not kidding you. Came over here and ripped up a tree and gave us all kinds of heck about it. Didn't want us to plant up against his garden, his wall. But other than that, that garden has been beautiful. And Paul Joseph, I got to tell you, Paul Joseph and I were at a district lunch, and we decided first to do the Bible study. And I said, Paul Joseph, would you send us some lay people to help us so we could have a women's Bible study and a men's Bible study? And he just looked at me, and he was sitting with Melody, and he started nodding his head and smiling, and he said, we will come. We will come. And I thought, what's he mean he'll come? He came, he set up an office, and he evangelized a whole new congregation.
What I was going to say when Denise mentioned that our a little bit of a disruptive neighborhood over there, one of the first crop that we had, in order to make ourselves more friendly with the neighbors, the gardeners donated money and took little bags of produce to everybody in the neighborhood. And they said, this is our gift to you from the Methodist Church.
Yeah. That was a wonderful thing to do. There was another memory that's just skipping my mind that I wanted to point out. Oh, all of you who were teachers stepped forward to teach the Laubach method to this group of women, because the women were being left behind at that time. And that went on for a long time. So that was another big thing that you did. It was really remarkable.
Yeah, and we had a lot of fun when we first started it because we used a bingo game, and the ladies enjoyed that so much. Instead of numbers, we used words, and they were learning just individual words by when we called out the bingo name of that word. They had fun playing with that, bingo.
When Paul Joseph first started, I'm not giving you any a chance to. When Paul Joseph first started the service here, he was ComD. He hadn't received his new name yet, and his family were the only people here, and then New Yang's family came, and that more than doubled the worship attendance. It was wonderful, and then after that, it just grew.
I have to say, Jurley's family came about next, and New Yang's family came. Wait, well, you just said New Yang.
Yeah,
Yang.
I said
Yang Yang's family came.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was Lee Chai and Mary.
Thank you, Diane.
Well, one of my favorite memories is how wonderful the congregation worked together to try to make a program for our children's ministry. So in the English language ministry, which was meeting in the morning, we had a lot of people willing to be teachers. And sometimes we had more teachers than students, which is awkward for children, right? And in the afternoon session, when our Hmong language ministry gathered for worship, we had hardly any teachers. At first we had, Kim was there, and then he needed to step back because he needed to be able to see his wife some on the weekends. And so we didn't really have teachers, but we had lots of kids. And so we sat down and brainstormed how to address this, and we came up with a new plan, a new way of doing ministry. And then over time, that changed because then our assigned pastor for Hmong language ministry got assigned somewhere else, and they didn't give us anybody. So suddenly, I was the Hmong language ministry pastor, and you guys know how good I speak Hmong, right? And so we started training up lay leaders who could do the preaching, and that was really fun and exciting, and it really empowered our women to give voice. That was so wonderful. And then we did a wonderful thing one summer. Do you guys remember? Every month we did a different worship time to see what would work, what was going to make it best for our kids and for the ministry overall and the congregation. I said, if this will help our children, are you willing to experiment? And overwhelmingly they said yes. And so we had a different schedule every month, testing it out until we found the schedule that worked best, and then we went with that schedule that allowed the Sunday school to be at 10 o'clock and had good teachers, and we had good attendance, and one year we had the Bible Olympics. That was so fun. Just so thankful for these wonderful memories that we have of the congregation working together to empower one another. Look at our women. Oh, okay.
I need to share another memory. When Paul Joseph was here, he was very concerned about Hmong women who were widowed or single, this may sound crude, but being like meat in a butcher shop window, because they were in danger of being snatched up as second wives. And so he organized the Women for Life. And that was the start of the empowerment of giving women rights, and in their own context. So everyone rallied around them, and I remember that when I was going through a bad spot in my ministry, which I related earlier, they gave me a new name, and a Hmong name. And I'll say it, and all of you Hmong, please close your ears because I can't pronounce it right. Kloti, it means shadow of light. So it was really a moving and eventful time that really blessed this congregation and me.
Well, yes, I think that finally includes this portion of our service.